Hey you guys, it's your girl Xenon, haver of excellent takes. Story time! Before I moved to Japan, I was a more casual fan of Japanese media. For a number of years, my tastes were actually curated by AniTubers. Things weren't always that way, of course. I'd been watching Japanese media on and off since the 90s. But I'd figured that I'd built up a fairly refined taste, having consumed hours upon hours of media over the years. Now, imagine my surprise when I get to Japan and talk to local aficionados. By local, I mean both Japanese people who were born and raised here, as well as Chinese and other Asian immigrants who have lived here much of their lives. Even before coming here, they had a proximity to Japanese culture and more of a shared history with the land, for better or worse. I remember multiple instances where I would recommend a show or a movie to a non-English speaking friend here, and they wouldn't have the same reaction to it that critics that I'd seen online would have. I'll admit, at first I assumed that it was because my friends here just didn't have tastes as refined as mine. I cringe admitting that on screen. But it's true. See, it all came crashing down one day when I recommended a show to a friend of mine, and we watched the first episode together, and he was not very impressed. I don't remember exactly which show it was, but I remember it came strongly recommended by Mother's Basement. When I told my friend this, he replied something to the effect of,
What's that got to do with me? Isn't that supposed to be for Westerners?
that was when I first noticed that a lot of things I'd heralded as exemplary of the Japanese canon weren't exactly very popular over here. And some things that were popular over here were simply beneath the notice of Western critics. Now, this is no shade to Mother's Basement or to AniTubers in general, really. I've had great recommendations from many of them, but I don't really watch any of them anymore, and that's because I can't unsee the Western lens of criticism that informs their takes. Now, I had been watching anime and dramas and classical cinema, even visual kei music videos for decades. But most of that content was fed to me either by Western distribution channels, such as 4Kids Media, or algorithms designed for Western consumers. There's a lot of history behind that, such as what content gets translated in the first place. Most Westerners have never even heard of Crayon Shin-chan, but most Asians have, for instance. English-speaking fans of my generation largely didn't watch Saint Seiya, but Spanish and French-speaking ones did. Those initial barriers formed the foundations of what would later inform Western tastes. Did you know that every year there's a new Detective Conan movie that comes out in cinemas? I usually go on opening weekend with my friends, and it is sold out all weekend, and it airs for months. When was the last time you heard anyone mention Conan on a Western outlet? There's definitely localizations of it, so access isn't really an issue in this case, I don't think. It's mostly a matter of taste. Oniichan wa Oshimai, or Onimai for short, is one of the best anime of 2023, hands down. Brought to us by Studio Bine, the studio behind Mushoku Tensei, it's a visual feast of pastel colors and smooth animation and adorable relationships. We follow the life of Mahiro Oyama after having been forcibly turned into a young girl by his little sister, and the story has bits of slice of life and comedy and a few lessons that I think audiences today could stand to hear a bit more of. けどよかった。真宙ちゃんに惹かれなくて。趣味なんて人それぞれなんだしさ。好きなものを隠すことないよ。もっと自信持ちなって。 But it barely got any attention from supposed connoisseurs in the West. It somehow found its way onto a hottest trash list, which genuinely leaves me speechless. What's worse is when you look into reviews of the anime online, critics obsess over benign bits of fiction that squick them out personally. Don't get me wrong, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but 1 star for an anime this gorgeous and wholesome? Did we even watch the same show?
Oh my god, corny, lame, boo, tomato, tomato, tomato. I'm throwing tomatoes.
The series director was Fuji Shingo, key animator from such hits as High School of the Dead, Space Dandy, Strike Witches, and Sarazanmai. Key animation was from Fujimoto Koki, from such hits as Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, All-Summer Ranking, and Mob Motherfucking Psycho. How fans of animation could overlook this show is beyond me, especially those who make a living off of claiming to be such. Unsurprisingly, it was extremely well received over here. The OP is one of the top rated videos on Toho Animation's YouTube channel, and pop up shops are quite popular, and merch sells out super quickly. If this show had come out a decade ago, I think it might have become a cult classic in the West, much like the Monogatari series, which is curiously another series that is curiously looked over by many AniTubers but enjoys consistent popularity over here. And while we're on the topic of studio bind, many have noticed that season 2 of Mushoku Tensei has many new staff members, which is sadly common in the industry. But is anyone curious where the old staff went? Series director Okamoto Manabu went on to direct Cinderella Girls U149. Now, I'm not a huge fan of idol series myself, but given the director, I decided to check it out, and it's gorgeous. It's wholesome and heartwarming and actually a lot of fun. Other than Phenom Sage, I don't know of any other AniTubers who mention idol shows positively at all, despite their overwhelming success over on this side of the pond. This is a persistent blind spot in Western anime criticism. I don't know exactly what causes it, and I don't want to start beef with the entire AniTuber community. Criticism is a subjective craft rather than a science, and it's always going to come through a lens of experience, knowledge, background, and personal taste. But I do hope that Western fans can broaden their understanding of the weird little foreign cartoons they like so much, and maybe give a few series a try that you might not have thought to normally. If I have inspired you to think even a little bit about series that you may not have considered watching, leave me a like and a comment. I would very, very much appreciate it. And please don't forget to subscribe. This is a new channel that I'm trying to grow very healthily, hopefully, and the algorithm will learn to like me. So please don't forget to leave your thoughts, comments, and other overlooked and underrated pieces down in the comments below. Thanks so much, you guys, and I'll catch you next time.